Facebook's stock price just took a major dip today. $200 billion has been taken off of the valuation of Meta, the company formerly known as Facebook. Now, in case you haven't been keeping up with the moves that this company has been making lately, well, for one, they renamed themselves from Facebook to Meta because their new business strategy is to take over the metaverse, this virtual reality space that tech companies want all of us to work and play in. The reality of the metaverse dystopia is actually a whole lot worse than the meme that we've all heard about, living in a pod and being happy. Because at least with the pod, you have something that's real. Even though it's a 6x8 cell with nothing really in it, it is at least physical. But the metaverse is a digital cell where you'll buy overpriced NFTs to decorate your house with, and you will be happy because your avatar will not be allowed to frown. At least not without you buying the frowning emoticon NFT. So far, they've invested more than $10 billion into their Reality Labs segment, which develops the virtual reality headsets and the augmented reality technology for the metaverse, which also contributed to the decline in this quarter's profits for Meta. The Zuck is investing billions into the metaverse because he thinks that it's going to be the next biggest thing since the invention of the internet. If Meta is able to take over the metaverse, and it does become this space where almost everybody works and plays in just like the current internet, then Mark Zuckerberg could become the most powerful person in the tech industry. But the fact is, Facebook and Meta, they still make most of their profits off of showing targeted ads to users. This is their bread and butter. But for the first time, probably since Facebook's inception, probably since it was just a site that only college kids were using, the number of users that are on the Facebook platform are also going down. So in a way, Facebook is burning their candle at both ends. Their ad revenue is declining, their quarterly profits are declining, and yet they are putting billions into their next investment, which, like I've said, is taking over the metaverse. Now, companies like Meta, they are able to survive stock declines. They're able to survive quarters that go a little bit unexpected. They tend to have a lot of cash on hand. And of course, Mark Zuckerberg himself is worth many billions of dollars. And Meta owns several other entities, including Instagram and WhatsApp. And these applications are not seeing the same decline in users that Facebook is. In fact, actually, if we look across all of the apps that Meta owns, Meta's users are actually slightly up by about 10 million. They've expanded their workforce by 23% as well. Most of these new roles that Meta has hired are technical roles, so more than likely they're hiring a whole bunch of engineers that are actually going to help build this metaverse dystopia that Mark Zuckerberg wants to be the king of. As we've seen, it's going to take a lot more than a bad day in the stock market and lots of bad PR for Meta to have their true decline happen. Hell, I don't think I've even seen any good news written about Meta or Facebook in over a year at this point. But you know, there might be another way for Facebook to be defeated. You're probably wondering, what could that possibly be? How could you possibly defeat an almost trillion-dollar company? Well, how's about an actual trillion-dollar company? Another reason for this decline in Facebook profits are actions that Apple has been taking against Facebook recently, specifically their app tracking transparency framework, which requires apps to ask users for permission before they can actually track them across other apps and websites. And obviously, if an application pops up and says, "Hey, do you mind if I track you?" Most people are going to say no. All it really takes is just changing that default option from allowing tracking by default to disabling tracking by default, and all of a sudden, a whole lot of people are not being tracked by Facebook. This one simple move by Apple is negatively impacting Facebook's business, which, like I've said, is targeted advertising. They can't really show you targeted ads if they aren't able to track all of your activity across the internet, because basically what these companies do, Facebook, Google, every company that engages in targeted advertising, is they look at what you like to watch, they look at where you like to shop and what products you're actually looking at, and they use this to create their own model of who you are. Think of it kind of like a creepy voodoo doll, except instead of poking you, they're showing things to the voodoo doll to see what makes it smile, and so they go ahead and they show these same things to you as well. Now, even though this app tracking transparency appears to be really great for privacy, at least for those that are within the Apple ecosystem, you aren't going to see me buying an iPhone anytime soon because iOS is still absolutely proprietary. There's also that weird thing that Apple wants to do, although it's been delayed, with them scanning all of your photos in iCloud for CSAM. That's a pretty weird thing to do, Apple. Like, I get that you can say, oh, think of the children, and then a whole lot of people are going to be on board, but anybody that actually understands what this would mean for privacy in the Apple ecosystem is against it. And again, iOS being absolutely proprietary means that this is not an option that you can turn off. Now, most stock Android devices, they also have a lot of spookiness that comes right out of the box, but depending on which specific Android device I have, I can just go ahead and flash a privacy-respecting ROM onto it, like Calyx OS or Graphene OS, and then bam, I've got a pretty private device, at least as private as any smartphone can be, which is not very much. Like, seriously, Apple, all you gotta do to get me on board to go and buy your phone is to open source the operating system that's running on it. If you do that, then I'll get up bright and early, I'll eat my avocado toast, I'll put on my Birkenstocks, I'll ride my bike to the local Apple store, and I'll spend more than the cost of a used car on a new phone. Hell, even the price of iPhones these days, it isn't really that bad in comparison to Android phones. Your only real option for paying under $1,000 in the Android market for a new device is to buy a Chinese one that's probably going to be embedded with some CCP spyware. Not that that's much worse than the phones that we have here with NSA spyware embedded in them. Both of them glow, they just glow different colors. But Apple's move to provide more privacy on their iOS platform, at least more privacy from third-party tracking, is clearly having a negative impact on Facebook to the tune of about $10 billion a year in revenue losses, at least according to Facebook's chief financial officer. So I guess for now, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Actually, no, because Apple's trying to bribe lawmakers into thinking that sideloading apps is a bad thing. That's pretty cringe, Apple, but I guess good job with helping to devalue Facebook. That's it for this video, guys. Like and comment, hack the algorithm, and have a great rest of your day.